Reservation Dogs is a slice-of-life comedy about a gang of 4 dumb kids from a reservation in Oklahoma, created by Sterling Harjo and Taika Waititi. They're a bunch of 2-bit crooks, or at least that's the way they start. They're scheming and saving so they can get out of their small town and move to California. There's Bear, the leader, Laura, a hard-ass with her eye on the prize, Cheese, a sweet kid if a little too soft to be in a real gang, and Willie Jack, the best character on the show.
We're selling me pies.
The show follows the Res Dogs as they commit petty larceny, scrap with a rival gang, and scam their way into and out of cash. With a new season about to start up, I thought it'd be a perfect time for a refresher for returning fans and a primer for new ones. Season 1 splits pretty cleanly in half with what it's trying to do, so let's start at the top. In the first 3 episodes, the Res Dogs steal a truck, get jumped by their rivals, go to the doctors, and drive their crazy uncle around so he can try and sell his ditchweed. Really epic stuff, you know? These first few episodes are here to build out the world of the Res. Each of the gang's scams involves them interacting with a ton of people from their community. There are the shady culture vultures at the salvage yard, the weirdos Uncle Brownie tries to sell to, Zon McLaren's clueless res cop Big, Bear's mom and her coworkers at the clinic, and all the randos they try to sell shit to. It's a huge supporting cast, and each one has at least a couple screws loose, but that's core to what these episodes are doing. Representation in media can be a complicated thing to discuss. Take it from me, a straight white man. I am truly ill-equipped to judge whether this show is accurate representation. If that's something you're interested in, Native Media Theory has a great video on the first season. But I think I can say what type of representation they're using. When representing an oppressed minority, it can feel like the responsibility of the work to show that culture in the best possible light, and to have the characters fully embody every one of their virtues. But take a look at yourself. Consider the categories you fall into. Do you perfectly represent every good quality of your communities? Does anyone? Or are we all just people? The same is true of the characters on the show. Bear is brave and selfish. Laura is caring and insensitive. Cheese is socially conscious to the point of alienating most of the people he interacts with. And Willie Jack is a fucking freakazoid, but she comes to it honestly. Everyone on the Res is like that. A little weird, a little sketchy, but with an honest heart. That's the word I keep coming back to. Honest. These characters come from where they come from, and that informs who they are and who they become. But it isn't the sum total of their identity. Because how could any one piece define a whole person? After the introductory episodes, the next 4 give each of the main characters their time in the sun. Bear plans for a visit from his deadbeat dad, Cheese goes for a ride along with Big, Willie Jack goes hunting with her dad, and Alora takes her driving test. We see how Bear's concept of masculinity has been warped by his father's absence. We learn about Cheese's aspirations to become a detective. We see Willie Jack's desire for tradition. And when Alora reconnects with an old family friend, she learns more about her mother, her history, and where she came from. Each is a small window into the life of their central character, but they all orbit around the same missing piece. Their group is floundering. They get their asses handed to them by their rivals, the Indian Mafia, and rarely see eye to eye because their gang is missing a piece at its heart. It's time to talk about Daniel. A lot of the early footage of the show featured the 4 leads in suits, and while it made for a cute Tarantino reference, once the show began airing, it took on greater meaning. The pilot culminates in a funeral of sorts. It's the 1-year anniversary of their friend Daniel's death. He was the 5th member of the gang, and his passing is still throwing ripples through their lives. In each of their solo episodes, but especially Willie Jack and Alora's, we get flashbacks to what Daniel was like. He was fun, he was a great hang. But he could be chaotic, and he carried a lot of sadness. He wanted the world to be bigger than it is. He couldn't cope with the boredom of life in a small town. Every time he found a little piece of joy, he thought, this is it. This is the thing that will fill the rest of my life. And when it didn't, he would act out. He wanted life to feel special, and eventually it killed him. It was his dream to go to California, to escape his past for greener pastures. And the Reservation Dogs are just trying to keep a piece of his dream alive. In the last episode of the season, all these tensions come to a head. When a tornado forces them to shelter with their rivals, the gloves come off and the truth comes out. Willie Jack and Cheese each decide to stay on the Res and abandon the dream of California. Bear is still on board, but but he blows up at Allura over her working with Jackie, the leader of their rival gang. The fight starts over Jackie, but that's not what it's about. They each think they have a monopoly on sadness, that they're the only one who knows the right way to mourn Daniel. They're both in pain and lash out at one another, and in the end, Allura decides to leave Bear behind and take Jackie to California instead. Misery loves company, after all. And that's where we're left for the start of Season 2, with Allura on the road, Bear trying to step up, and Willie, Jack, and Cheese looking to become a bigger part of their community. Time for some bottom lines. Is the show worth watching? Absolutely. It isn't the funniest show of all time, but the characters are all deep and compelling, with interesting drama throughout. Can I jump in at Season 2? Probably not. I've given you the broad strokes of the plot, but you'd be missing a whole lot of nuance, and you wouldn't understand the characters well enough to connect with them, I don't think. If you want a speedrun to get ready for Season 2, then you can skip episodes 2, 4, and 5. They're fun, but inessential. What's the best episode? The consensus pick is probably episode 7, California Dreamin'. Bill Burr guest stars as Allura's driving adjudicator and former basketball coach, and they have some really effective interactions. Plus, that's the episode where we get the full story on Daniel. But I really like the episode before that, Hunting. I love the way Willie, Jack, and her dad interact. It's very tender, and I was really moved by the way they talked about Daniel. He was Willie's cousin, and her parents took care of him. The emotions of that episode are subtle, but they really got to me. Plus, it doesn't hurt that Willie Jack is my favorite character. And that's all I've got. Season 2 starts airing August 3rd. I hope you check it out, and I hope you like this video. Like, comment, subscribe. It really helps the channel, or at the very least, my mental health. Be good, and thanks for watching. Also, I never mentioned Dallas Goldtooth's character, William Knifeman.
I saw Custer like that. That yellow hair, he was sitting there. Son of the morning star, that guy right there. Fuck, I really hated him.
He's hilarious, but I can't talk about him without spoiling some really great jokes, so just trust me, watch the show. Cool? Cool. As you were.